This is all the concept of when the son asks questions on Pesach. Rabbi Natan is bringing us through this beautiful journey, through the entire experience of Pesach, all of the challenges of us being in exile, and all of the beauty of us leaving. What is the source of the exile? What is the source of us leaving? All of those things are being treated in the most beautiful, delicate way. And now Rav Natan is bringing us to the Seder, that we know that there's a mitzvah from Chazal, and there's a mitzvah from the Torah, that we need to say over the story of Pesach, of us leaving exile. And Rav Natan is now bringing what's the secret of the fact that the son has to ask. Shemitzvah yishal ben, the mitzvah of the son asking, Ma nishtana halayla hazeh mikol halelot. What's different about this night from all other nights? My gosh, I just had a flashback to my childhood Pesachs. I was always the youngest, so I was always the one asking, which is, now that I'm thinking about it, tremendous hashgacha pratit, tremendous providence considered what ended up happening to me. Because needs then on the night of Pesach, lishol davka kushot. Because davka on the night of Pesach, you need to ask this difficulty, this challenge. Manish tana, what's different? What's different? Not just what happened, but how is this a change? How is this different? Kedei lashiv al zeh, so that the father should respond, avadim ayinu, we were slaves. Meaning that Hashem Yiparach, He did with us miracles. And He revealed the fact that He is the orchestrator of reality. He is the conductor of reality. And there is no such thing as Teva. And it's through this kusha of the sun, it's through this challenge of the sun, of how this night is different, how it's a change. Manishtana. It's through this it's through this question itself that is subdued and nullified and conciliated all of the challenges that come from science, that come from nature, that come from the concept of things just take place. It's happenstance. It's coincidence. It's clear from Rav Natan and Rav Nachman that the entire exile is the mindset of nature and coincidence. And all of those things are really only a trapping. They're only an enclothement of a much higher reality, which is called Hashgacha Pratit. Hashem does whatever He wants, whenever He wants. And the whole entire exile of the Jewish people was the fact that we had been convinced by the Mitzrayim that all there was science, nature, happenstance, coincidence. And as a result of that, Paro enslaved us more and more and more and more. And it's clear from the Ramchal that the enslavement, and Rabbi Nachman speaks about it as well, that the main enslavement was of the mind. Our das went into exile. Our God consciousness went into exile. And what is that consciousness of? It's Emunah, that Hashem does whatever He wants, whenever He wants. And that kept going deeper and deeper into exile. So our Geula, our redemption came when we realized that there really was nothing else beside the Ratzon of Hashem. And therefore, when the son asks, how is this night different than other nights? Meaning, how is Emunah different than science? How is Emunah different than the questions and the thoughts of the secular world? How is Pesach, the mouth that speaks? Why is Tefillah different than the laws of nature? Because it's through this nullifying of the challenge of happenstance that Hashgacha is revealed. And therefore the son has to specifically ask this question. Manish Tana, how is this different? What's the chiddush? What's the novelty? Balel Pesach. In order that it should nullify all of the difficulty and challenge kol kushot shel hamchakrim, of all of those philosophers and those who are scientifically equipped, or in the words of psychology, that is evidence-based practice, all based on the five senses. It's all coming from the wisdom of science, the wisdom of nature. But by asking the question of how is our essence different than that? What makes a Jew a Jew? What is it about my life that's truly different than what I've learned from society, that what I've learned in 2021 from the secular world? Manish Tana, the son is asking Hashem, how are we different? And the father, Hashem, is responding back to us, the tzaddik is responding back to us, that we were slaves, but we're not slaves anymore. Hashem took us out of that place. And he did it through the makot, because the makot were all revelations of the fact that Hashem does whatever he wants, whenever he wants, all increasing more and more and more through the different makot. And it's through this one question on the laws of nature that we nullify all questions. And therefore it says that the speaking out of Torah is keneged the four sons that have to be at the table. That they're all asking these questions of what's different about tonight. What's different about tonight? What's the chiddush? I remember one time I had a student, I think he might be on here, and he asked me in the morning, he started coming for Shachri, thank God. You know, there's a big misnomer that when people start learning Rabbi Nachman's Torah, they stop learning anything else and they don't do the mitzvot chas v'sholom. But anybody who ever started learning Rabbi Nachman's Torah knows that they went from not doing or being interested in any of it to wanting to take on the whole Torah kula because of the fire of the heart that has entered into them. And he was in there in the morning in Shachri, and he came over to me and he said to me, David, tell me a chiddush. Tell me something new. Ma nishtana, how is it different today? And I told him, listen, I could tell you a lot of things, but I'll tell you the truth of truths. The greatest chiddush in the world is Rabbi Nachman ben Fega. The greatest chiddush in the world is the tzaddik Yisod Olam. That he makes us believe in chidushim. That he makes us believe the truth. That Hashem machadish Maaseh Bereshit Tamid, that Hashem is recreating the universe at every single moment, not just to read it in Shachrit in the morning, but to live with that reality, to speak to Hashem for an hour every day based on that reality, to run after the mitzvot with everything that we have based on that reality, to be able to overcome all trials and tribulations through the reality of everything can change. My Rabbi Rav Walkenzal, I just spoke about him last night. I work at Eshet Torah at night. I teach modern Orthodox boys over there that are in their gap year. So they asked me to speak about my rabbi. And I remember when I was very, very depressed and I stopped coming to yeshiva. I was in Kollel. I stopped coming for months because I couldn't function. And my rabbi was trying every day to try to help me. He would call me, he would text me, and like every single day to try to machazik me, to start over again, to come back, everything's going to be okay. But the message was falling on deaf ears because I was suffering so much. And like the Jews in Mitzrayim, kotzer ruach, they couldn't breathe. They had no ruach, so they couldn't hear Moshe. I couldn't hear anything. And then one time he told me when he saw that like nothing was working, he said, you know, David, my grandmother, when she gave birth once to her last child, the doctors botched the birth and she became paralyzed for the rest of her life. And I used to be in awe of my grandmother because despite the fact that she never left her bed because she couldn't move, and it was all based on what was seemingly happenstance and a complete negligence on the part of the medical staff. And because of this, she's never going to be able to walk again. He said that she was always besimcha. She was always happy, like not normally happy, like really happy. And after like a few years or whatever it was of him thinking about it and bothering him all the time, how she could be so happy despite this grievous error and the consequences of that error, he finally had the guts to come up to his grandma and said, "Grandma, can you just tell me why you're so happy? You shouldn't be. You should be very, very upset." And she said to him, "Aaron, tomorrow's a brand new day. It's new." And then he got off the phone with me. The whole exile is old. It's old. Nothing's ever going to change. And Rabbi Nachman's telling us it's always changing. But you just have to believe it. We're so stuck, in the struggle. We're so stuck, we can't breathe. Kotzer Ruach. And Rabbi Nachman is screaming at us. Hashem is machadesh. Hashem is changing everything always. You have to believe it. And so Pesach, which is the Geula, which is the redemption, our son has to ask the Father, what's the Chiddush? And that question itself is the answer. Machadesh. It's not old, it's brand new. Rabbi Nachman says it's forbidden to become old. Even for a chassid, to be an old chassid, he said it's forbidden. You're not allowed to. Just like he said it's forbidden to go into Yeyush, it's forbidden to despair. How can you say it's forbidden to get old? We get old. How do you say it's forbidden to despair? We go through challenges in our life. And the answer is, In shum Yeyush ba'olam klal. There's no such thing as despair. There's no such thing as things are the same. And that's where despair comes from. And this is the message of the tzaddik, and this is the message of Rav Natan to us, that this is how you have Pesach. How, like the Arizal says, you have the mouth that speaks, you have Geula, you have redemption. How do we open our mouths and speak to Hashem, believing that everything is changing? By the little child inside of you, having the courage to say, Manish Tana, what's the Chiddush? How is this different? How are we different? Because the four sons, Rav Natan said, are connected the four exiles, the four kingships that exiled us, the Babylonians and the Assyrians, the Romans and the Greeks. Kemuva, like is brought in the writings of the Ari. Because the four kingdoms that they exiled us, shehem klal kol agliot. They are the archetype for all exile, all personal exile, all collective exile, the Shoah, the Holocaust, the Spanish Inquisition, everything that's happened to us for thousands of years. They're all encompassed in these four exiles. And he said every single one of these exiles are strengthened only through one concept. Belief in nature, belief in happenstance, belief in chance, belief that things just happen, belief in people, places, and things. But all of the exiles, they're all nullified. They're all subdued by the questions of the four sons. It's through their questioning nature. It's through their questioning whether things really are the same, whether they really don't change or not. How is this different? How are we different? What am I here for in this world? What's my mission in this world? Why did Hashem send me here? That question itself breaks all of the exile. And it's through this that we nullify all of the kingdoms that are exiling us. And that includes all galut, all exile, all suffering personally and collectively. How is this night different? Meaning that the difficulty, the challenge, What is this that it's in the nighttime? Saying, Manish Tana Halayla. Why is it different Balayla, the nighttime? It's hinting to the fact that all exile is the concept of nature, because Rav Natan told us before that the concept of nighttime is the concept of nature. So therefore we're saying, Manish Tana Laila. How are we different than Laila, than Teva, than nature? That is the revelation of Ashkacha, of providence, all the more so when it's at nighttime, during the times of Teva. And this, Rav Natan says, is the whole essence of Mashiach, King David. He's getting up at nighttime, when everybody's sleeping. He's believing in Ashkacha Pratis, while everybody's believing in Teva. He's believing that Hashem does whatever he wants, whenever he wants, while everybody else is sleeping with their consciousness in exile, based on the belief that things are happening because of people, places, and things, because of nations, because of governments, because of times and periods and circumstance and happenstance. But Teirutz Avadim Ainu, and the response, the answer to the child is that we were slaves, that nighttime is the concept of slavery. V'lo yachlanu letzeit misham, and we weren't able to go out from there. Ki ima yadeit galu ashkacha lavad. We were only able to go out when there was a revelation of Ashkacha, when the Jewish people saw Hashem runs the world. And then it's forced to nullify all Teva completely, all nature completely, because in the face of Hashkacha, Teva ceases to exist. So a person might ask, but I don't understand. We know that there's laws of nature. We know that there's science. Mapitom, what are you talking about? What is all of this? And the answer is, it depends where you look at it, how you look at it. Depends how you look at it. If you look at the ray of a sun, you can't say the ray doesn't exist. The ray exists, and the ray is giving light. And you can quantify it, and you can qualify it. There's a ray. But Rabbi Nachman is saying, but if you just look up and you track the ray back up to the sun, then when you get to the sun itself, the ray becomes nullified in the sun. And you see the ray is nothing other than an expression of the sun itself. So too, Teva is nothing other than a ray of the Hashkacha of Hashem, than the providence of Hashem. And if you track it back up through Hibodedut and through listening to the Torah and the Eitzah, the advice of the Tzaddik Yesod Olam, you're going to find that there is nothing else beside Hashkacha Pratis, that nature becomes nullified in providence. And that's the reason why the miracle took place at nighttime specifically. In order that it should be subdued at its source, because it's taught in Kabbalah and Chassidut, the only way to nullify something negative is to transform it at its source. The root of negativity, it needs to be flipped. In order that he should subdue it at its source, to flip the night to day, to flip exile to redemption, to flip suffering to bliss, to flip obstacles to ecstasy. When all the ni'imot become, when all of the meniyot become ni'imot. Keep bit till a teva legamri, because it was at that moment that night turned to day and nature was nullified completely. V'az nita pech laila layom, and flip nighttime to daytime. Bechinat laila kayom ya'ir, like the Torah says, that the nighttime, like the daytime, it will shine. We know that the moon was cursed in the beginning of creation. The moon represents the concept of Teva, the concept of nature, nighttime, the exile. And what ended up happening? That the moon said, nighttime said, how can there be two crowns? How can nighttime be equal to daytime? Because then we're the same thing. How can we be the same thing? Then there's only one thing. He said, you're right. Shrink yourself. And because of this, for all of history, all of our suffering is coming from nighttime. It's coming from belief in nature. It's coming from belief that things can't change. And that's why it's David, Davka, it's the Mashiach, B'Davka, that he's going to bring the redemption, because he's the moon. He's going to come from that most intense place of servitude, the most intense belief in nature. And at the root of it, he's going to flip it and show that the whole entire thing was nothing other than daytime. And then all of the moon becomes equal to the light of the sun. Like we say in Rosh Chodesh, new, it's Rosh. It's a new head, it's a new reality, it's a new consciousness, Rosh Chodesh that we just had in Shvat. And we say, David Melech Yisrael, Chai V'Kayam. The Mashiach is coming. And what is he going to teach us? That the moon and the sun are equal. That nature is nothing other than a reflection of Hashgacha Pratis, divine providence. Zeh Ikar Anes, this is the essence of the miracle. Batel Ateva, it's the nullification of nature. Bechinat Laila Lagamre, the concept of nighttime completely. It's complete darkness, like the ninth plague. Al Ken Aya Nes Balayla Daika. And therefore, this miracle took place at nighttime specifically. Because the only way to truly bring Geula, redemption, is to take the challenges and the suffering of one's life and to show that that is Hashgacha Pratis. You know, we're constantly looking for daytime. We're constantly looking for an end to the challenges. But Rabbi Nachman is saying that an even higher level is to realize the challenges themselves are nothing other than divine providence, Hashem's good. And that's the Geula, and that's the redemption. Like it says in Masechet Pasachim, what's the difference between now and the future? That we said, by Yomahu, on that day, Hashem will be one and his name will be one. He's not now. He said, now, on the bad things, we say, Baruch Daina Emet. Blessed is the true judge. And in the future, we're gonna say Tov U'Metiv, right? On everything. Now we say on bad things, Baruch Daina Emet, and on good things, we say Tov U'Metiv. But in the future, we're only gonna say Tov U'Metiv. But the question is obvious. What's the difference between now and then? Rabbi Nachman has a very deep lesson, a very scary lesson almost, where he speaks about the fact that we think that now is real. The present is real. Olam Hazeh is real. And the future, what is it? I don't know. And he says, in fact, it's the opposite. Because if you build a house, when does the house actually look like the original thought, the original desire for the house, the whole reason for the creation of the house? It's all coming from when the house is complete. And every step until the house is actually complete, it doesn't even look like the house itself. It looks like tremendous construction. It's only once the house is completely built do you get to see the original thought. So too, this world, Olam Hazeh, our lives and our struggles, they're the building of this house. And if you think that what's really going on is the construction itself, and you don't realize it's only for the sake of the house being built at the end, then you'll never get there. Because you have to have the goal in mind. Rabbi Nachman says the whole exile is forgetting. The whole Geula is remembering. What are you remembering? Olam Haba. Rabbi Nachman used to say, the sages tell us that there's Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba. There's this world and the next. The next world, Ani Mamin, I believe. Makes sense to me that there's going to be a place where we're going to have a lot of good, a lot of pleasure, a lot of peace, a lot of love, a lot of joy, a lot of truth, a lot of connection, a lot of unity. I can get on that. Olam Hazeh, I don't see this world. All I see is Kulo Gehenna. I just see Gehenna. I just see suffering. Think about it. What is this moment? It's gone. What about this moment? It's gone. Next moment, it's gone. It's gone. Where did it go? I don't know. Where? It's not about where we are. It's about where we're going. We're finding the lost princess. And if you forget it, that's the cause of the suffering. A person who goes to the gym thinking he's going to a picnic, it's hell. But if he goes to the gym and he knows how he's going to look after, how he's going to feel after, what's going to happen to him afterwards, the growth that's going to come from it, how he's going to transform from the experience of the gym itself, then he looks forward to the gym more than he does the rest of the day when he's not working out. So Rabbi Nachman says, don't forget, don't ever forget. Rabbi Nachman says, every morning that you wake up, you have to remember, Olam Haba, Olam Haba. And the commentators say, well, how do you wake up and remember Olam Haba? Who wakes up and remembers Olam Haba? And the commentators, Likutey say, it's obvious that the person who wakes up and remembers Olam Haba, he must have remembered it before he went to sleep as well. He must have thought about it before he went to go to sleep. And you can keep going back and forth and back and forth. How do you remember at nighttime before you go to sleep? Olam haba. You must have thought about it during the day. The reason why Rabbi Nachman was always besimcha was because even though he was physically here, his consciousness wasn't here, because he understood that this world is nothing. It's nothing. It's here and then it's not here. When did I turn 32 years old? I don't know. Where is all the things that happened to me? It's gone. So what is all of this? There's something coming that's going to be very beautiful. There's going to be an ocean that splits. And all of the difficulties and challenges of our life are going to turn into the ultimate bliss. B'ezrat Hashem, we should see it, B'merav Yameinu, soon in our days. And in the meantime, we should ask ourselves, Ma nishtana? What's different? Where's the change? Where's the chiddush? The chiddush is emunah. Believe that Hashem can change anything, everything. And when you truly believe it, you'll be able to see it. Does anybody have any questions from today's class? So in order to reach true light, we must first go through darkness. Yes, that is exactly right. You'll notice in the non-Jewish calendars, when does daytime start? It starts bayom, when the sun is out. How does the day end? Nighttime. Why did Chazal and why did Hashem make it that the day starts at night? To show that light comes from darkness, not the other way around. Any other questions?
Actually, I have another question.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So why is it that it seems like, I don't know if it's just like a Jewish thing, but it seems like the righteous really do suffer, and basically it seems like through suffering we're achieving so much, but why does it have to be through so much suffering? Like I get it, because it really in some ways makes sense, because if you had everything perfectly and everything was amazing, you wouldn't really reach any sort of, I mean, you would just probably stay stagnant. But I'm just wondering why it has to, or it seems like it's like kind of like a virtue to suffer.
Right, I understand. So the truth is that the Torah doesn't encourage suffering at all. The Torah encourages life. It encourages joy. However, because our actions matter very, very much, and that's the whole ikar of this world, is bechira, is free will, to choose. And the fact that we have consequences for our actions that are both positive and negative, that are so serious, it's a testament to the fact that you matter, that I matter, that we matter. And in the beginning of creation, Hashem gave a choice to original man, to the beginning of human consciousness. And he said, I'm giving you every tree. Just don't eat from this one. And Rabbi Natan explains, and Rabbi Nachman explains, that the tree was teva. The tree was the belief in nature. And Adam felt that I have a greater ability to reveal Hashem if I show that he's even here. And even though he was punished for it, he wasn't wrong. And this is a paradox, because all challenges and all suffering comes from that original experience. Just like a seed, if you have a child, or let's say me, that I'm 32, if I get a cut, because with Hashem, it's going to heal. But if I got a cut when I was, let's say, a child, I probably have a scar the rest of my life. And let's say I got a cut while I was still a fetus in my mother's womb, then it could be even something more serious.
How old are you? I'm sorry. How old are you?
32.
That's funny. I thought you were just born.
Okay, very good. You're more right than me. And then, one second. And then we have, if you had a cut, in the seed. He had some type of blemish of the seed. Then the challenges and difficulties of this are very, very, very far-reaching. So too, because Adam was the beginning of human consciousness. It was the beginning of human experience. So anything that he did had tremendous ripple effects for the rest of history. And therefore, as a result of that, Hashem said, from now on, when you give birth, instead of it being benachat, there's going to be birth pangs. So a person might ask themselves, well, why should I have to go through this? Because there was one first person that he made an error, no matter how well-meaning it was.
You don't.
But the answer is that we were all a part of Adam. And Adam was not just a person as we know him, but Adam represents the collective soul of all of Klal Yisrael. And that's why it says in the Gemara that Yaakov looked just like Adam, because Yaakov represents the archetypal soul of the Jewish people. So we were all there. And we're all making that choice every day to eat from the tree of Teva, to eat from the tree of nature, to believe that there's such a thing that exists in and of itself. So, but Rabbi Nachman was not part of the sin. And as a result of that, he's able to see very clearly that there really is no such thing. And just like the Gemara says that a prisoner cannot release himself from prison, what do you need the Gemara to teach you that for? It's an obvious fact. But the real secret of this is that we're all imprisoned by belief in nature as existing in and of itself, that there's people, places, and things and coincidences. And Rabbi Nachman was sent to this world to get us to ask, Manish Tana, what's the truth? How is this different? How are we different? What's the concept of a chiddush? What's the concept of something new? And then we get to hear that really nighttime is nothing other than daytime.
Now what?
Any other questions?
Yeah, now what do? We just go?
Now we have to pray a lot, because when a person realizes that nothing is other than whatever Hashem wants, then it becomes incumbent upon a person to ask him for a lot of help for himself and everyone around him. And, there's a story called The Master of Prayer that Rabbi Nachman wrote, which is alluding to the times of Mashiach. And you see a lot of commonalities between the Master of Prayer, Rabbi Nachman himself, in some cases the Baal Shem Tov, his great-grandfather, where this Baal Tefillah, this Master of Prayer, he is speaking to people individually, and then his family can't find him anymore. And the reason is because he's out in the field and he's out in the forest. He's out in isolated places talking to Hashem. They can't see him anymore. And slowly over the course of time, you see more and more people are going lost. And they're finding themselves in a field or a forest talking to Hashem. Rabbi Nachman says clearly that it's Emunah that's going to bring the redemption. It's Emunah that's going to bring the Geula. Just like it was the Emunah of the Jewish people in Moshe, in the Tzaddik, the belief in Machadesh, the belief that Hashem is really renewing everything at every moment. That is what brings the redemption itself. So what is there to do now? Ibodadut. Go ask Hashem for whatever it is that you need and what you want, and yourself, your family, your friends, the Jewish people. This is what's going to bring the Geula.
I want what he wants.
Okay, good. That's what you should tell him.
It did.
Okay, so keep going.
Okay, or whatever you are.
Anybody else?
Just to piggyback on that, so I remember when I read years ago in Midrash Rabbi that there's a process for suffering that we go from copper to silver to gold for the Messiah to come.
Interesting. Rabbi Nachman says in the 10th Torah of Likutey Moran that what's the difference between Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? We see that for Abraham, Tefillah was a har, it was like a mountain, Har Bayit, right? That's where Yitzchak had the Akedah, that's where he brought him. That was the highest revelation of godliness. It was the concept of a mountain. And a mountain is very difficult to get up. A mountain is very difficult to traverse. A mountain is very difficult to climb Only the few elite are able to do it. And then you see that Yitzchak Avinu, that he called that same space a field. He called it a sadeh. And a field, Rabbi Nachman says, is much more accessible than a mountain. And it's utilized by many more people. But still, you need to be a specific type of person to go into a field, and that's your work. But Yaakov said, this is a home. This is my home. It's the house of tefillah. And Rabbi Nachman says that when tefillah becomes like a home, which everybody needs, and it's the place where everybody feels like themselves, where everybody feels comfortable. When the Jewish people perceive tefillah as a home, not as a mountain, that's when the geula is going to happen. And to me, it just seems obvious that means hibodedut, that when that space is your safe space, when the Jewish people don't think that tefillah is only in the Beit Knesset, it's only on the mountain, it's also in your home. It is your home. This is your place of comfort, that this is going to be the geula. And Rabbi Nachman said that when Likutey is studied all around the world, you can know that the Mashiach, his steps are being heard, because he's the one who instills emunah in us. He's the one who gets us, like the Baal Tefillah, that he's just taking people and bringing them to the field, bringing them outside. Talk to Hashem. Everybody have an amazing, amazing day. If you are in America, amazing night. If you're in Israel and Bezrat Hashem, we should see that they're all the same.
You have to take out